Hello and welcome to freaking Wednesday Madness. I apologize sincerely for the delay, but fear not, your favorite meme show isn't going anywhere. In this episode, we're taking a look at a strategy unique to the Sicilians, namely, the Donjon Rush. The first game we're taking a look at today, we're mainly going to demonstrate the struggles of the Donjon Rush. This game I played live on my stream, and like most things when you do them live, they go horribly wrong. If you want to check out my random and spontaneous streams, the link to my channel will be in the description. Now back to our game. I was playing as the Sicilians, and my opponent was playing as the Tatars, and the map was Gold Rush. I had a pretty decent start. I had the most beautiful meal you can ever possibly imagine, with closed berries, zebras and even shorefish. My uptime isn't bad at all either, but here is where things start to go horribly wrong. In my greed, I'm unwilling to send forward villagers, thinking that the sergeants can do the donjon building themselves. So this way, my 4 villagers wouldn't have to walk across the map and then just stand idle in his base. So I make my first donjon defensively, and then I wait for about 4 sergeants before I moved out, and yes, you guessed it, by this time he already has some scouts out and he's harassing my wood line. And of course I was so extremely greedy that I didn't even make a barracks, cause I was hoping that the sergeants would be protection enough. But in hindsight, this is pretty silly. Finally, my sergeants are in position, and I have a perfect donjon for both my enemy stone mines, but I'm struggling to afford the 75 wood required at the same time as I want to add farms and houses, so my donjon gets very delayed. This seems like quite a tight build, and maybe not something you should just improvise on stream. The sergeants are however expensive but an excellent unit, and they have pretty good pierce armor. My donjon goes up and down several times. I'm not dealing any major damage to my opponent, but I'm certainly being annoying. After some market magic, I can even advance up to Castle Age, slightly before my opponent. I add some TCs and Castle, and I go for the other meme strat of the Sicilians, namely the First Crusade tech. But at this point my opponent has equal or more amount of Tatar cavalry archers, and the sergeants, even with their pretty sick 5 pierce armor, have to throw in the towel. Greed really screwed me over in this game. Greed and, to be honest, poor execution. Next up, we have the preposterous Paterna and his attempt for the Donjon Rush. The map is Arabia, and we're looking at a Sicilian mirror. Paterna seems to have a pretty good build. Also, he's not being as greedy as I was, and he actually sends forward his villagers to make it a rush instead of whatever fiasco I was making. The donjon goes up in an amazing location, covering the main gold, the main stone, and the woodline of his enemy. He then adds some sergeants and busts through the pesky palisades and adds another donjon on the secondary woodline of his opponent. His opponent also can't gather any gold, so this makes it so that he can't make any sergeants of his own. He can only make scouts. A huge fight takes place when Paterna tries to put down a 3rd donjon on Blue's 3rd woodline, but after some thought, Blue isn't having any of it, and he's forced off wood yet again. Paterna adds a few more donjons, and he fully cements control of the enemy's stone and gold mines. But in the meantime, Blue sends his scouts over to Paterna's base, and this results in some villager losses for our hero in yellow. Blue is finally again able to take some wood, but for the moment he doesn't have a good answer to Paterna's sergeants. They're allowed to roam free, and they're not really afraid of fighting villagers under arrow fire due to their high pierce armor. Blue manages to get up to Castle Age, but at this point his whole economy is covered by Paterna's donjons, and he struggles to collect resources. Before long, he resigns. A perfectly executed donjon rush. Thank you for your contribution, Paterna. In this game we're looking at Ludicrous Lael, The map is of course Arabia, and Lael's opponent is playing as the Aztecs, a pretty tough matchup. Lael has a pretty decent uptime and puts down a Donjon to deny the enemy woodline. But unable to get through the walls, he chooses another angle of approach. And here you can really see the difference between the normal watchtowers and the donjons. In defense, Red manages to put up 2 towers to Lael's second 1 donjon. Sadly, Lael isn't able to do any major damage to his opponent, who's able to go out to the castle edge. He then adds a siege workshop and starts taking down some of Lael's donjons, and it's starting to look pretty dicey for our blue mad lad. But Lael isn't far behind. He's up to castle edge himself, and he adds some siege of his own. Lael is now going all in trying to deny the castle from Red from going up, and he just about manages to do so. But a second wave of villagers comes in, and the castle goes up. Luckily for Lael, he has a ram and a few sergeants still alive, so maybe he can take the castle down. Sadly, there's just a perfect counter to everything Lael is making at the moment. And that counter is called Jaguar Warriors. The castle stays up with a millimeter left on its health bar, and Lael loses his entire army. Lael is now 30 villagers behind, and he calls the GG. Or does he? Of course he doesn't. He's Lael, and this is Wednesday Madness. Lael still has 5 donjons, and 5 donjons can produce units a lot faster than 1 castle. Lael builds more donjons to push his opponent off his resources. The Jaguars probably trade super effectively here, but they're outnumbered and die nonetheless. Lael also manages to go up to Imperial Age, and his opponent is probably thinking that he's far behind, because he resigns the game not knowing that he still has 30 villagers more than Lael. A very surprising outcome for what looked like a done deal. Well played, Lael, and thank you for your contribution. Okay. Next up, we have a game from someone who's just lost it. Brix is giving us his Donjon Rush in a team game, but to make things even more difficult, we're also playing on islands. Well, I guess you didn't think this challenge was difficult enough, Brix. Brix is actually having a fantastic build order, and you can really tell that he planned this by the way he sends 4 villagers that will later on build a donjon to take shorefish by his dock. He lands on the enemy island just when he reaches feudal age, and he put down 3 amazing donjons blocking 2 stone mines, the main gold, a woodline, and the berries from his enemy. Sadly, Brix neither walls or links his donjons, so one of them ends up going down. Brix can't seem to deal that much more damage, and I would say that his donjon rush failed, but let's cast the rest of the game to just see what happens. In Castle Age, Brix blocks a new TC with 3 donjons. Arguably, he spends more resources than his opponent here because, well, I don't know if I said this before, but the donjons are freaking expensive. Other than that, the Castle Age is a bit of a stalemate. Brix reaches Imperial Age first, and he starts tripping down Red's castle. All of a sudden, you see Brix making some town centers on Red's island. Is he going for the First Crusade tech here too? But he already has 4 town centers at home. They would just spawn at home. Oh. Okay, Brix, what? Why can't you just make a transport like a normal person? Is this how far we've gotten in Monday Madness, that players forget the basic features of the game? Oh, at least it gives me a laugh. Sadly though, the opponents call the game before the tech is researched, so the masterpiece is a disaster piece. F's in the comments. But thank you for your interesting contribution, Brix. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Monday Madness. If you haven't already, feel free to give this video a like and consider subscribing not to miss out on future videos. In the description of this video, you will find the links to my social media where I will be posting when the next video is uploaded. Should you like to take part in the next video, feel free to join my Discord where I will be posting the next week's strategy. Bye for now and have a nice rest of your week.